When was the last time that you saw the twins? Really think about it. You're more likely to run into a Wesker, a Blight, maybe even a Doctor, than you are to run into these two. And when you do see them, it usually goes a little like this. Welcome to Forgotten Foes of the Fog, a series where we look at killers consistently stuck at the bottom of Dead by Daylight's pick rates. The ones where most players leave behind in the selection screen. Are they secretly strong, misunderstood, or just better left in the basement? Today's episode, the twins. Let's dive in. The twins, Charlotte and Victor DA, were introduced in Chapter 18, A Binding of Kin. They have a unique concept and playstyle, backed by tragic lore and a deeply unsettling aesthetic. Charlotte, the primary killer, uses the Blade of Marseille, a sickle fashioned into a weapon, and moves at 4.6 meters per second. Standard for most killers. Victor, her monstrous twin brother, is a secondary ability. Players can release Victor to hunt survivors, pouncing to either injure or down them. He's fast too, moving at 6 meters per second, which works out roughly 50% quicker than a survivor. Now, their ability to switch between the two is what makes them unique. When you separate Victor from Charlotte, one remains dormant while you control the other. In theory, this means that you can apply pressure to multiple areas at once. It sounds incredible, right? So, why are they consistently one of the least picked killers in the game? Well, the reality is that the twins have a steep learning curve. Their mechanics can be tricky to master, and experienced survivors with good map knowledge can easily counter their power. But it's not just about how they play, it's also about how the DBD community perceives them too. So let's talk numbers. According to third-party tracking sites, the twins consistently sit in the bottom 5 picked killers in Dead by Daylight, averaging a pick rate of just 0.68%. The lowest being between April and May of 2025 at 0.62%. That's shockingly low for a killer with such a distinct and potentially powerful playstyle. And it's not just about their mechanics. When you ask players about the twins, you usually hear one of two things. They're overpowered and miserable to go against, or they're clunky, they're awful, they're really robotic to play. There's rarely a middle ground, so what gives? The first problem is clunky mechanics. Controlling two characters sounds amazing, and the potential to dominate a trial should be easy, right? Although the ability to switch is relatively quick, it causes interruptions for the player and can easily result in a loss of map pressure or a survivor gaining a slight advantage, such as reaching a vault or pallet whilst they are in chase. Swapping from Charlotte to Victor is fairly quick at 0.5 seconds, but switching back takes about 3 times as long. These times can increase when you are near exit gates, the hatch, or hooks, which are very conveniently placed around the map. This creates awkward moments of vulnerability that new players will not be aware of, which feeds into the steep learning curve and understanding maps, understanding game knowledge, and understanding when you can actually activate the killer's abilities. Secondly, Counterplay. Victor is fast and can pounce at a distance, but missing the attack leaves him vulnerable. If you miss your attack, survivors are able to crush Victor. This will temporarily disable the use of Victor, or in the grand scheme of things, temporarily disable the secondary ability of the twins, which will immediately cause you to lose any pressure that you have built up. On maps where you've got tight rooms, sharp corners, or lots of environmental clutter, it's also very likely you will hit these obstacles, which means it's harder again to land those leap hits. So, the learning curve is steep, and one bad play can really flip the momentum of the match. Again, it seems very excessive for a small alteration in your gameplay. For new players, this could be really off-putting or really make the twins a hard killer to learn and understand. Number 3, we have Slugging. The way the twins' power works naturally encourages a particular playstyle called Slugging. This is when you leave survivors on the floor to bleed out whilst you hunt other survivors. Now, Charlotte can stay by a downed survivor whilst you switch to Victor and search for nearby players. This brings in the slugging, and if anyone gets too close, the killer instinct can reveal their location. It's a frustrating experience for survivors, and whilst it's a legitimate strategy, it's one of the reasons twins matches can feel really miserable to play. And lastly, we have pressure. With survivor perks ever growing and the meta ever changing, there are many perks that are being introduced into heavy rotation in games, which make it very hard for any player to capitalize on Victor's momentum. It's tough to keep survivors down long enough when you have perks in play, such as Made for This, Adrenaline, or Decisive Strike. The twins generally benefit from generator slowdown perks, since they rely on keeping survivors busy whilst you create map pressure. A great idea in theory, but not always easy to achieve. Any new players to the game will not understand this dynamic, and again, it feeds into a really steep learning curve for the twins. An honourable mention would be the physical look and horror aspect of the twins also. At its very core, the appeal of Dead by Daylight is for horror fans to immerse themselves in a universe where they are hunting or being hunted in a horror environment. So, a solid design concept that instill fear or repulse players will go a very long way. The twins have long been criticised for being a basic concept which does not quite hit the mark when it comes to the horror aspect. On top of this, they very rarely get cosmetics to change their appearance or make them even more scary, which isn't really surprising given their pick rate. And some players even criticise that there is a lack of cosmetics for Victor. However, as Victor is technically a remote ability and not a second killer, he will never receive cosmetics and will stay the same regardless. So is it their luck that is bringing the failure of the twins? But here's the thing, when played well, the twins can be absolutely devastating. Victor's speed and leap range let you chase survivors off gens, scout for injured players, and even secure endgame kills. Lynxy is a very popular streamer and also a fantastic example of how to bring out the lethality in the twins, and even showcase the ability of sniping survivors as Victor. So, is the low pick rate really deserved? Honestly, no. But they're one of the hardest to play effectively, and even harder to enjoy consistently, particularly when you factor in how big of a learning curve the game in general is for brand new players. If you could redesign the twins and their ability, how would you change them? Let me know down in the comments. And in the next episode, we're taking a look at another controversial killer, the Skull Merchant. And let me tell you, if you thought the twins had problems, you haven't seen anything yet. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you give it a big thumbs up because that really helps me out. And make sure you subscribe to catch future episodes of Forgotten Foes of the Fog.